Iranian government this time was exactly the same as President George Bush response to peace initiative or negotiation diplomacy initiative from Mr. Khademi's side. The Iranian side, the leader of the country declared that this is not a good will stretched hand, and there is a lot of devil purposes behind, probably there is some devil purposes behind these gestures. We cannot trust you to have a genuine intention to talk with us. And after that, a very heavy sanctions against Iran started to be raised. The talks on nuclear issue were abundant, and everybody talked about more pressure, more confrontation, and there was talks about even a military invasion or military attack on Iran from Israeli side. I think the intention of Mr. Obama of sanction is not a preparation to go for war. As he mentions, these policy sanctions is there to compel, to push Iranian government to negotiate seriously on nuclear issues. At the moment, we have 2 rounds of talks. One happened in Istanbul last month. The next one happened in Baghdad 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And next week, we will have another round of negotiations in Moscow. My assessment, my analysis of the situation is like that. There is some changes of policies coming from West and particularly from the United States. George Bush government told Iranian government that, look, if you want to negotiate with us seriously, you have to abandon that program. You have to stop these centrifuges. You have to stop enrichments and dismantle the program. And this sort of talk, I believe, couldn't work and didn't work. Couldn't work and didn't work. Mr. Bush proposed a precondition to the negotiations that you have to stop your program. And we cannot believe that any enrichment, any activity, nuclear activity, might be proposed peaceful in your country. Now, Mr. Obama has changed his position, the US position. He says, you are allowed to work in the context of NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, which says you are allowed to enrich to some extent, to some degrees, 3, 4, 5% enrichment. It is allowed, but the quantity of this enrichment and the number of your centrifuges should be limited as much as you need to produce energy. If you do more, it cannot be tolerated. Second, you have to stop 20% enrichment of the uranium. And third, the inspectors of IAEA, International Atomic Energy Organization, should be allowed to have access to all facilities, centers, and nuclear plants in Iran. This proposal, I think, cannot be accepted as a basis for agreement, in my view. That sort of limitations, inspections, and the limitations in terms of quantity and the degree and access for inspection. From Iranian side, I can see that never ever so far the high degree of enrichment was not a serious demand from Iran to follow. They are able to abandon 20% enrichment and receive the rods of 20% enriched from abroad to use for some medical or laboratory activities. And these points, these specific points, can be compromised in Moscow. In terms of political will of two sides, I think Obama administration and the European side think that if there is escalation towards war and the threat will be escalated, then the price of oil will go up, and these crises will affect our economy, it affects our employment, and there is a better situation if we reach an agreement with Iranian government. There is a positive will. I feel there's a positive will for compromise. In Iran as well, the impact of these sanctions against our economy is enormous. The economy of Iran is crippling now. Industry, oil industry, manufacturing, trade, even financial activities has got many problems to solve because of these sanctions. This is why the Iranian government says, look, if you want to reach that limits, if you want to stop 20% enrichment, if you want to have access to nuclear facilities to make sure there's nothing to do with nuclear weapons, you have to lift up some sanctions, to ease sanctions, at least financial embargo, oil embargo, insurance, trade, these sort of things that have got nothing to do with nuclear issues, security and military should be released or at least eased. I think there was a problem within the Iranian government that blocked the attempts to reach an agreement with the West. And that was a rift within the government, a conflict within the government. There's two parts, two factions within the government, and trying or playing against each other all through these 30 years. Now, we have got a more concentrated, and the leader has got more power. The president is weakened now, and more importantly, the Green Movement, Mr. Mousavi, the candidate of previous presidency election, is in favor of some agreements. Vast specter of opposition groups in Iran who are all against the incumbent government and Ahmadinejad and the Islamic Republic are supporting peace and supporting that agreement which is going to happen, if happen, in Moscow. We are in a better situation in the region. Just one point is worse. Just one point is worse. The situation in Syria. There is the country is at the brink of civil war, and Iran has got a major influence in that country, and has lined up itself with Assad government. There is an opposition there which is strongly gets support from Western countries, the opposition, and there is a conflict there. If that conflict goes to a full civil war, then I think some equations, some political equations will be changed, and prevents some decision-making, immediate decision-making. This affects negatively the process of negotiation in Moscow. The other thing that prevents some compromise is the influence of right-wing politicians or political parties within the United States. As you know, Mitt Romney is going to run for presidential election, and he is very firmly against any compromise with Iran. And they get support from some oil producers within the Persian Gulf and Israel as well.